What is everybody? Welcome back to the Transparency Friday Night Live. Yes, here we go. Idaho4 versus Nancy Guthrie, IGG timeline, as well as just the timeline in general. We're going to compare some really interesting, I think, really interesting points. Basically, if you guys remember anything from the Idaho4 case, we were getting press releases almost daily. Okay. So much so that what I went and did is I went and took Ann Taylor's exhibit list that she was going to use in the case. And what I did was take the exhibit list, like we see here, and I took the Nancy Guthrie case. And so what I did in the Nancy Guthrie case, we were on day 20. So I went ahead and lined up all of the daily press releases to whatever day it was would be in the Nancy Guthrie case. And I'm going to highlight and show you guys some stuff that I think is just is rather interesting. You guys can be the judge if you think it's as interesting as I do. Now, day 1 and 2 for the Moscow case is the 13th and 14th of November. Okay. Day 3 is when we first really get this little like, hey, we're going to do these pressers that actually have more than just like a paragraph stating like this. So day 1 in the Nancy Guthrie case was basically Sunday, February 1st. So I'm treating day 1 in the Idaho case, November 13th, because they both happen pretty much the same time in the middle of the night. So I'm counting that first day that the cops actually get there and able to do something as day 1 for each of them. So what I think is very, very interesting is that, okay, all we get here is basically there's a preliminary investigation on November 15th. They want to write about it and they want to say that there's been no weapons that have been located. And then based on the preliminary information, investigators believe that an edged weapon such as a knife was used. So right off the bat, they're going to go ahead and give that, they weren't shot. We're going to tell you that an edged weapon was used. In Nancy's case, obviously when they released I guess you can say the Nest cameras, we saw that they had a gun, right? But yeah. Now, in the Idaho4 case, we all know that they kept that scene, meaning we always thought that they were just having and housing somebody out there, but really, truly, they kept it a crime scene because they kept on going back and getting more evidence. Also, they were using it as a temporary evidence storage locker. And so therefore they were leaving evidence and, hey, we're going to just be back here tomorrow. So we'll come back here and we'll get this stuff. So unlike the Nancy Guthrie case, right? They released the scene for, 24, 48 hours. And then they came back and they're like, okay, we're going to take it back over and we're going to have a sheriff now out here patrolling it. Just like the Idaho4 case. Somebody was basically outside the entire time, which in the Idaho4 case, we just thought, hey, nobody knew there was evidence in there in terms of like literally storing, hey, we're going to be back here tomorrow. So all they basically come out and say, besides saying that we have an edged weapon on day 3, they come out and tell us that that they're following all leads to identify a person of interest. They also say that they were going to be working very closely with the Idaho State Police as well as other state and federal law enforcement partners on this case. So pretty similar. The FBI comes in a couple days after the 13th in the Idaho4 case. And then here in the Nancy Guthrie case, the same thing happens. They call in the feds. All right. Now, when we get into day 5, which is November 18th, it would be, I would say that the sheriff came out in the Guthrie case and was speaking. Okay. They had a presser. The first press conference that we get in the Idaho 4 case is on November 16th, which would be like day 13, 14, 15, day 4. So here I went ahead and pulled up the day 5, which is November 18th. And so what we would have known in the Nancy Guthrie case up to day 5 is everything that you see on page 1 here. And minus this specific timeline, because this specific timeline actually comes when the feds are in on that presser, which is going to be on it's actually, it's day 5. So we're pretty close. So day 5 is when we get this. Okay. Now, what about it is real though? Well, TMZ said that this was false, that they had somebody that says at 1:47 the doorbell camera was not disconnected because the 212 motion that's detected, that's actually the guy outside the front of the house. So we should already be highlighting this area right here. Now, just like the Idaho 4 case, Bill Thompson, who was with the Latah County prosecuting attorney, his office, he comes out and is literally doing interviews. Okay, that happens to be, let's see. Well, let's just go like this. Day 5 here, we have the coroner coming out in day 5. They basically give us the evening where Kaylee and Maddie were. They tell us that Ethan and Xana got home at approximately 1:45. And they tell us that the other roommates were at the residence that night. There is no that they were out and about that night. Okay. Now, the autopsies, they say that they were conducted on the 17th. So this is coming out the 18th. And they let us know that the coroner said that the 4 victims were likely asleep. Now, we know that that's absolutely false, right? Okay, the coroner tells us, and she doesn't know shit about anything. She didn't do anything in this case. That they were likely asleep. Some had defensive wounds. Yep. And each was stabbed multiple times. So she got 2 out of 3 right there. But she would have known, right? That, I mean, come on. If you've heard anybody talking in any of these interviews, everybody's awake, right? Now, on the 18th of November, okay, in the Nancy Guthrie case, they know there's blood outside. And so what they say that they do here is on day 3, now this is interesting, day 3 is when, I don't know if they're going to be saying that the public finds out that there was forced entry, or are they really trying to say that they found out that there was forced entry on day 3? Like, wouldn't you know that day 1? But that's something that they say right here is investigators find forced entry, signs of forced entry. Zoom in a little bit more. Donald Trump is already commenting on the case in day 3. Now, remember day 2, a ransom, but nobody makes it public. Day 4, authorities return to the home for a follow-up investigation. Now, this is so similar to the Idaho 4 case, guys. These investigators, they went out there on the 13th. So day 1, they were swabbing and doing whatever. They go back there on the 14th. Then they go back there. I mean, they are like literally going back almost every day up and until like, I mean, religiously until the 19th of November. So, so just like the Nancy Guthrie case, okay, they were doing the same thing as they were going back. You know, everyone's like, why are you there? What are you guys doing? You guys suck. Dude, this is the same shit that they did in the Idaho 4 case. Okay. And guess what? The media. Who's saying everybody sucks? Who's saying that people are fighting with each other? The media. Okay. In the Idaho 4 case, it was the same thing, except in the Idaho 4 case, they weren't saying that the feds and Moscow and Idaho State Police were fighting, they were basically saying that Bill Thompson is coming out talking wild shit. The mayor's talking wild shit. And the Moscow Police Department says, hey, we're the official spokesperson. So if you don't hear it from us, forget about it. And it's like the guy that's eventually going to prosecute this case is literally getting blown up, right? By these pressers, these press releases at least. And so when I was comparing this, I'm like, both seem like we're on the same path here. Now, we now know this because we have a lot of the records in the Idaho4 case. We know that on the 16th, they took the sheath and they sent it to the Idaho State Police Lab to be processed. Okay. And then it was, hey, we found a profile on the 18th, and then talking about, okay, well, how soon in the Idaho4 case do they start saying that people are cleared? And this should blow everybody's mind. Everybody's having a hard time with the fact that nobody was being cleared in the Nancy Guthrie case. Okay. You guys, in the Idaho4 case, people are being cleared. Look at this. So on this day 5, I only say day 6 because it depends if you want to use the 13th as a day or not, which I do. So it would be day 5. Right here at the bottom, at this time in the investigation, detectives do not believe the 2 surviving roommates or the male in the grub truck surveillance video are involved in this crime. Additionally, online reports of the victims being tied and gagged are not accurate. Really? Because I call bullshit on that one. I call bullshit on all of those. Okay? They didn't even obtain anybody's DNA to like they have DNA. They don't even know that they have DNA, but they have a shit ton of blood they have to go through, right? They also have the sheath. They are literally coming out and telling us back in the day that the grub truck guy, aka Showalter, was cleared. The surviving roommates cleared. They have no footprints leaving that house. They didn't know anything on this day, November 18th. And when you go back and you read these, I mean, what the hell are we putting out to the world? Cheers. Cheers. We don't have the sheath. Results are not in. No DNA comps yet. Still processing the scene. Okay. They were still processing the scene at the Idaho4 crime scene on November 18th. You know how I know this? Well, because we have all the reports and we have all the investigative reports as well as the lab reports to know when shit was occurring. You guys, they were still processing the scene, and they are writing in these police reports, these police pressers rather, that they're clearing. Now, the grub truck surveillance video guy, aka hoodie guy, are you on crack? Like, I don't know if they wanted to ease up and be like, hey, we need these people to talk to us, so let's just go out there and clear them. Let's just go out there and put them in our presser that we clear them. Then, now think about this. Day 5. Day 5. They also want to tell us this type of shit. As part of the investigation, detectives seized the contents of 3 dumpsters. Great. But they didn't take any of the trash that was inside the house. They also want to say at this time that they have 500 tips. And then they conducted 38 interviews. And I remember counting all these people. And I'm like, wait, you guys only have 38 interviews at that time? I would be thinking that there should be a lot more. And lo and behold, like, were you guys not counting the FBI interviews? They are using 4 agencies. So the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Idaho State Police, and the Latah County Sheriff's Office. Now, what we know of is in the Nancy Guthrie case, they have 11 agencies on this case. 11 agencies. 11. Now, what we also know is that they're lying over here to say that these are the only, the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Latah County. You guys, they should be adding to this WSU, and Pullman Police Department, flat out, easily. That should be boop right there, right? They're also using Coeur d'Alene Police Department. I would love to know about ATF as well. But we'll move on. We'll be kind. Now, they then break down, hey, we have 4 detectives. Okay, well, who are these 4 detectives? I'm just curious. From Moscow Police Department. Who? Remember, we just took people and we just made them detectives. Anyways, 24 patrol officers, 5 support staff. The Federal Bureau of Investigation sent 22 investigators that they said was in Moscow, remember? And I'm over here saying, well, half of these people that they were sending the shit to they weren't in Moscow. So who were these 22 feds in Moscow when they were dealing with people that weren't on location, allegedly, supposedly? Or if all these people were on location and if it would have come out in trial, I think that would have been super, super interesting. Okay. So day 5, all of this shit, the Nancy Guthrie case. Okay. Now, unlike the Idaho4 case, there was no reward ever posted. There wasn't reward money. So here, now think about this. Think about this. Steve Gonsalves and the family wanted a reward, right? No, we can't put that shit all over campus. Come on, man. We can't do that. We need people to come to the school. Well, here, Thursday, February 5th, day 5, FBI announces a $50,000 reward for information. 50 G's. Officials confirm blood at the front porch belongs to Nancy. No suspect identified. Family continues to publicly appeal to the public. Now, rumors would then start swirling that, hey, this is a ransom. So I thought to myself, okay, well, what was going on back in the Idaho4 case? What were people saying? That this was a drug house. Right? That this was a drug house. Frats, sororities, drug house, what? Now, let's move on to day 8 or 9 in the Idaho4 case compared to day 8 or 9 in Guthrie's case. Day 8 or 9 would have been February 8th and February 9th. Okay. February 8th was Super Bowl Sunday. Everybody got out of Dodge, right? February 9th was the deadline for that Monday at 5 p.m. Okay. So, and then that Saturday or that Friday before the Super Bowl, shit went wild with the sheriff was at the Arizona game. Okay. So let's see what Moscow Police Department put out on day 8 and 9 here. Well, the FBI is taking digital media tips. You can submit your tips, okay, by using this link. Next thing they wanted us to know is that on the night of the incident, the officers located a dog at the residence. On the night of the incident, you located a dog at the residence? Well, that's interesting. I would be using that in court. The dog was unharmed and turned over to animal services and then released to a responsible party. Now, we now know in this case that they didn't even test the dog to see if the dog had any blood fibers, nothing. Nothing. To see maybe if the dog was drugged and just nothing, right? Next, rumor control. Detectives are aware of a Latah County Sheriff's Office incident of the report of a skinned dog and have determined it is unrelated to this incident. How did they determine that? If you really think about it at that point in time, how did they determine that? Think about the Nancy Guthrie case. Ready? We see gloves on the side of the road. We are collecting them, and we believe that they could have something to do with the murder or the abduction or both in the Nancy Guthrie case, right? 2 miles away. gonna get even crazier. They also want to tell us that, hey, we're going to have a news conference to update the public on the 23rd. Next, this is the narrative that they want to pump out. That, hey, guess what, guys? On the evening of November 12th, Kaylee, we know all of that. We changed the time a little bit here. Okay. And then investigators have determined, and they end up walking this back. So it was believed, remember? We believe that Ethan and Xana were seen at the Sigma Chi house on the University of Idaho campus. And that's how it says period. Okay. They were able to determine it. They don't put a time there. See how there's no time with it? That's why they go period. And they're able to determine that because somebody showed them a video that they took with Xana there. Okay. Now, the next sentence is at approximately 1:45 a.m., Ethan and Xana are believed. Okay, see how they cannot, they have no evidence. They just believe that they had arrived and returned home. Okay. They are unable to determine that at that moment. They just believe that. But guys, now knowing what we know, Bethany was interviewed. Dylan was interviewed. They were not home at 1:45. They were not there. They never saw them. They never saw them before they went to bed, which was supposedly like, between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. Next. Detectives believe that on November 12th, the 2 surviving roommates had also been out in the Moscow community. So that is now changed because it was that they were just home. Now we're adding in. But they were, they were separately out and about, and they returned by 1 a.m. Again, keyword there is believed. And that, hey, guess what? The 2 did not wake up until later that morning. They are not witnesses, right? Well, we know that that's totally not true. From jump, that wasn't true. Now, detectives are now seeking. So how long do they wait to specifically ask for, hey, we want 3 to 6? Well, it was just like a day or two before this. So like days. It was November 20th. So just like in the Nancy Guthrie case, okay, what do? Well, they don't write anything up, right? But they do tell everybody whether that they're all looking for camera footage. Same thing. So both of these cases, it's, hey, we're looking for surveillance between this time and this time, right? So it's the same in terms of, hey, we're trying to get as much as we can with cameras. Then Moscow thinks it's really important for us to say that at this time, okay, we want to know if you guys have seen anything suspicious behavior on the night of November 12th, okay? And anyone who observed suspicious behavior near these areas or has video surveillance are asked to submit their tips. At this time, Moscow Police Department's like, we're gonna clear some more people. So the 2 surviving roommates, the male in the grub truck, and now the private party driver who took Kaylee and Madison home on the 13th. And I'm over here like, wait a second, what was the date on this again? November 21st. You guys, this is wild. Absolutely wild to me. Do you know when that interview was? That when so on they never even compare, like Eric Gower's DNA. Okay, what did they compare it to by November 21st? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. None of these people were cleared. None of these people should have been cleared. They had nothing to clear these people. Nothing to clear these people. Okay. I'm just like, wait, when did they put Eric on this bitch? The private party driver who took Kaylee and Madison home on November 13th. You guys, what were they clearing these people off of? Do you know that hoodie guy is still being like, they didn't even go yet to get that. They're trying to still get into his apartment. They're trying to still get into his apartment to be able to, oh, hey, it looks like we see some blood. Oh, God, yeah, right out here. Oh, and it also looks like this has been cleaned off a little bit. So they can get this search warrant so they can go in to Jack Showalter's apartment. That hasn't even happened yet. They're clearing me. Look at this. We have no footprints leaving this place. We have stuff that we haven't even gotten to the lab for them to even test yet. Okay, to know what the hell we're even dealing with. And right about at this time, you're getting back the fact that there was an unknown male transfer DNA on the sheath, and it was in the process of being uploaded to CODIS. Okay. And the question is did they upload it to the national, like, did they do, how long did it take them to get back the results from CODIS? Okay, because it doesn't, it's not like it's instant. Okay, so in the Nancy Guthrie case, okay, the identity of the 911 caller has not been released. Same thing in the Nancy Guthrie case. The 911 call wasn't released. Same thing in the Nancy Guthrie case as the Idaho4 case. 911 calls not released, and we're not saying who called 911. Wild. Investigators are aware of multiple phone calls from the victims, Madison and Kaylee, to a male. Online reports of the victims being tied and gagged are not accurate. Okay. Well, what's being said right now, or what at the time in the Nancy Guthrie case, what was being said that was not accurate? Well, I can tell you that, remember, like, none of the family had been clear at this point, right? You've already had Carlos detained, arrested, his house like blasted in, right? Where's the probable cause in any of this, right? Yeah. Detectives seized the contents of 3 dumpsters. Awesome. Local businesses were contacted to determine if a Flex blade knife had been recently purchased. Okay, what are they doing right now? They're running around trying to find clothing from Walmart. Okay. They want to tell everybody that currently no suspects are in custody and no weapon has been located, right? On the morning of November 13th, the surviving roommates summoned friends to the residence because they believed one of the second floor victims had passed out and was not waking up. Unreal, right? That's not what they thought. At 11:58 a.m., 911 call requested aid for an unconscious person. Okay, multiple people talked to the 911. Yep, sure thing. Officers entered the residence and found the 4 victims on the 2nd and 3rd floor. At this time in the investigation, detectives do not believe any individual at the residence when 911 was called is involved in this crime. You guys, they didn't even know who was at the house when the 911 call was made. Wild shit, right? But it's just so important to, like, get this out there, I guess. To date, nearly 600 tips have been received. All tips are processed, vetted, investigated, and cleared. Ann Taylor's going to have a field day with that because that didn't happen at all. Okay. In fact, I think she was going to ask Chief Fry why he spent all this time with that guy, Scott. So now, right after this one is where they're going to make the decision to do IGG. Okay. So day 13 in the Nancy Guthrie case, okay, day 13, this was video They're looking for video 5 miles away. Weird man with 2 backpacks trying to jump over a fence in the Nancy Guthrie case. They found a glove 1 to 2 miles away. And 1 Bitcoin for info, 67,000. That's what we're dealing with in the Nancy Guthrie case at this time. So by day 13, we have they've already located the glove that's 2 miles away. So let's take a look at this. Ready? Well, day 13 in the Idaho4 case is a very significant day because November 25th was the day that they decided they were going to bring in, Pullman and WSU and let these local law enforcement agencies know about this white Honda Elantra. Okay. Now, there has been no talks to date, day 20, about any vehicle. They're basically saying, because of the area, that there's just nada. Okay. But yet in day 20, they're over here talking about the fucking Mexican border. And I'm over here laughing because for you to even be remotely considering the Mexican border, okay, you need to get there, right? So do they have a vehicle? Do they have a vehicle of interest? Do they have, a vehicle that they're considering? And so just think about it in the terms of the Idaho4 case, you guys. They didn't come out and tell the public about a vehicle until December 7th. Okay, we still have days to get to that point yet. So here though, so day 13 in the Idaho4 case, this is what we were told. Okay, we were told that there has been numerous media inquiries about a 1999 double stabbing in Pullman and the 2021 double stabbing with 1 death in Salem, Oregon. While these cases share similarities, it has nothing to do with it. Community members have uploaded over 260 digital media submissions to the FBI link. In this case, it's like insane. Like right now, they're claiming that they're over at 50,000. 50,000. What do you call it? We got 50,000 tips. Don't know how they're all coming in, but 50,000. So, to date, 113 pieces of physical evidence have been collected and sent to the Idaho State Lab for processing and analysis. For processing. Now, I call bullshit. Okay, because I'm telling you, yeah, they may have been sent to the lab, been collected, but that doesn't mean that, hey, they're by November 25th, you guys, there's no way that 113 pieces were processed at that point. Now, 113 would have been collected and that the lab has in its possession, sure. But process is a totally different thing. Oh, hey, Governor Brad Little has directed up to $1 million in state funds for the ongoing investigation. Well, in this case, we haven't heard about any funds being, here you go. Okay. Now, on November 25th, you guys, it would have just been 2 days before this. IGG was like, okay, we're using IGG, right? We're going to fly it to Texas. All right. So that would have come day, 8, day 9. In this case, the same thing happened. Using the Florida lab. So this is the difference here that we're going to see. The sheriff has always used the DNA International lab out of Florida. Okay. He's been using it for 40 years. Okay. Ready? The difference that I believe in the Idaho4 case from the Nancy Guthrie case is the FBI wanted from Idaho. They wanted the evidence, which was the raw data. We need the DNA so that we can do what? So this talk about the sheriff not giving the FBI and withholding evidence, the only thing that I believe that is about IGG. Think about it. It makes perfect sense. It was about this lab, and it was about that he used the lab in Florida, and I'm like, okay, who cares? Right? Why would the FBI pitch a bitch? Well, the FBI would pitch a bitch because if this lab is going to stay true to the interim policy, you're not able to go and put them in all these databases that you want to go put them in if you're the FBI, who's just going to go rogue like they did in the Kohlberger case. So I believe that whole little scuffle of like, yeah, they're withholding evidence. Yeah, think about where that came from. Who's been the source this whole time? Somebody that's in the FBI has been a source for people like Ashley Banfield and Brian Etten. And they're the ones that we're talking about the sheriff withholding evidence. Withholding evidence? What the fuck are you talking about? Well, the one thing that I think this could be about is that the FBI wants what they did in the Brian Kohlberger case. Okay? That's what you'd be withholding, because the FBI would need the raw to go do their own thing and to go put it in what they need to go put it in. And if the sheriff's over there like, we're not doing that, or no, like, we're like, if the sheriff knows maybe how the FBI and what they're about to go do, maybe he just doesn't want a part of it. Anyways, at the end of the day, where we're at here is they added on this lovely day, they wanted to tell us that, hey, at this time in the investigation, the detectives do not believe the following are involved in this case. But before we get to that point, it was all about having a stalker. So think about this in the Nancy Guthrie case. This has always been, is this an isolated targeted attack? They started talking about, is this a botched burglary? Just ridiculous shit. You guys, why would Nancy Guthrie be taken? Well, just like the Idaho4 case, they came out and said that this was an isolated targeted attack, right? And Bill Thompson was like, yeah, we just don't know if the target was the house or if the target was a person, right? Remember all this stuff? And then they were talking about stalkers. And in fact, it was this big thing about Kaylee having a stalker. And if you actually listen to the person that started that, I believe, are the roommates. I believe that Dylan's saying that she had a stalker herself. But if you listen to the recorded interviews, it's the law enforcement people that are asking the witnesses if people had stalkers, not these witnesses coming forward and saying so-and-so had a stalker. They brought up a situation at that Winco, remember? And it was like, what? Like that's that situation. And saying that there's this stalker, right? I think that they were considering a night prowler because of the Ava Wood situation. Like, oh, hey, somebody tried to get into my, apartment. I live right across the street. And just like a couple weeks before this, someone's trying to get into my apartment. They were jiggling the lock and whatnot. So in the Nancy Guthrie case, again, trying to figure out who or what could be the reason that Nancy was taken is the same way. It's just the motive here. Okay, the motive. And that's what they were trying to figure out is what's the motive here? Why were these kids killed? Right? Same thing in the Nancy Guthrie case. We don't have motive here. There's no clear-cut motive here. Unless, right? Oh, well, I thought we had these ransom notes. Well, the only ransom thing that I would ever give like an ounce of weight would be like how I told you guys, if there was a video on that Nest camera and they just never told anybody about it, right? And then the FBI tries to flip the switch. I don't think in the Idaho4 case anything was given to the media for the purpose to I'm trying to think. I think the closest thing to like something like whack would be like the 4chan, but that wasn't given like from law enforcement. So that's like the most, I think the most glaring difference is that I believe that purposefully the FBI is behind the ransom that went to TMZ. Okay. And trying to like pull out the real abductors to reach out, because the way that they had done it, they were acting like that they never got that. That's my take though. Okay. So going here, again, this is day 13 in the investigation in the Idaho4 case. What they were telling us that the 2 surviving roommates, not involved. The male at the grub truck, not involved. The private driver now, not involved. The male Kaylee and Madison called numerous times, not involved. And this is wild. This was their prime suspect. This was their prime suspect in the Idaho4 case, was Jack D. Jack D was listed as a suspect for work that was being done at the lab. His name, it says suspect, not subject, suspect next to his name. Okay. And then any individual at the residence when 911 was called. But right here's the first time that we get that the male Kaylee and Madison called numerous times during the early morning hours of November 13th. That's the first time that you see that. In the Nancy Guthrie case, you guys, the only people that have been quote, like cleared like this has been the family. In the Nancy Guthrie case, just recently here, we're talking about like polygraphs. Okay. That's something that did not come about that I know of in any interview that I heard yet. Hey, are you willing to take a polygraph? Okay. So that wasn't employed unless the feds were saying that shit, but it has not come out in any interview that I've read or listened to in the Idaho4 case. Like that's to date. But again, that could have been done with, by the feds. I think it's a joke, but whatever. Additional information released. Ready. 113 pieces of physical evidence collected and taken to the ISP crime lab. Do you see how now they switched the verbiage there? They switched that up. They're also letting us know that they want to control the rumors here. The identity of the 911 caller has not been released. Just like the Nancy Guthrie case. And detectives are aware of that incident. Detectives are also aware of a Moscow police incident of the report of deceased animals left on a resident's property. This was determined to be wildlife activity and is not related to the murders. That is flat out bullshit. I'm going to tell you guys a story I have never told you before. Right after Brian Colbert took a plea deal, right after it, literally the next day, like after Brian Colbert took a plea deal and it was the sentencing, right the day after, I get a notification and one of the local media outlets in Idaho struck my channel. I said, what the fuck? This is a video from 2022. They wanted this video down. Do you want to know what video it was? It was the video I did on the fraternities and sororities. And I used fair use, used videos that the local media had already done with these animal killings and then it being left on the sorority and fraternity's porches. Okay. That wasn't wildlife activity. They're fucking full of shit. So when I was going back through this, when I saw this, I said, oh my God, I have to talk about this. This is bullshit. That's not true at all. So much that I know it's not true that somebody remembered, okay, or somebody was told, hey, you need to get that video taken down. That video where it talks about there's wolves, there's all that shit, right? And so I screenshot it and did whatever. And I reached out to the person and I said, it looks like I struck a nerve with this one. I said, don't worry. I download and double record all my shit. And I said, one day I will tell the world about that. And I thought, today's the day. So, I mean, who could possibly have remembered that video that was literally 3 years ago? So much so that you guys know how many videos I made in the Idaho4 case? Like a shit ton. How the hell could you find that video? Yeah, somebody was waiting for that moment where, hey, once this case is, you need to go get that. You need to get that taken down. That wasn't wildlife, you guys. That was straight up. You know what they say to always look out for in life is when kids like to do what? Play with fire, fuck with animals. Okay. That's like, what do they tell you? Those are red flags. Like, hey, we need to fucking take a look at this kid, or hey, this kid's doing this, this, and this. Okay. Those kids on that campus were killing animals and then leaving them on each other's porches. So much so that one of the news outlets covered it. And then the next day, or the day that everybody found out that the students were murdered, Kyle Fry returns to school and his dad drops him off. Okay. That like early morning. And his dad mentioned the fact that when he dropped his kid off, that he saw there was a dead animal. Can't make this shit up. Anyways. But this, it just reminded me that the local outlet came and struck my channel. Didn't ask to take it down. Struck it. And I said, oh, I'll be appealing this because it's fair use. But I said, I must have really struck a nerve. I said, now I will dig deeper. Watch me. Pathetic fucks. Pussy ass bitches. Of all things, why in the world would you ever, as an investigative journalist, anything that I would ever cover, that's like the biggest compliment, is when somebody takes your work and talks about it and wants to point to it and bring awareness to it and put eyes on something. They did the complete opposite. And that's when you know people are bought and paid. Like, maybe one day I'll tell you the name. Anyways. So, online reports of the victims being tied and gagged are not accurate. But you know what? Somebody leaked it. Somebody leaked the fact that Kaylee was completely in a different. Kaylee was different than everybody else. That's just how we'll say it, okay? Kaylee was different than everybody else. Just like in the Nancy Guthrie case, we're having difficult time on this whole when did this really occur, the timeline, right? Same thing in the Idaho4 case. How can we not have a proper timeline? But hey, we're dealing with a chump. Now, today's the day. Day 20. Idaho4 case, day 20. Here we are, Nancy Guthrie's case, day 20. I said, okay, where are we at in the Nancy Guthrie case? Where were we in the Idaho4 case at the time? Well, at that time, it was December 2nd. So think about this, December 2nd. That's literally right after the explosion where Thompson comes out and starts doing interviews at the end of November. Okay, November 28th, 9th, and 30th. And then the Gonsalveses, they get basically, they're starting to get shut out of, hey, we're not going to give them any more information. Okay. And that happened right before Thanksgiving, like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And that was when they made the decision to go and do IGG. That would be the same time that Steve said when he came out and he's like, why aren't we going and getting these, you know, these genetic databases and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So they're like, we're not going to talk to the families anymore type of thing. That's where they were at. Like the families are all being divided. Okay. And here in the Guthrie case, people were trying to do the same thing in a way, right? Everybody was going, hey, it's the brother-in-law. They were trying to divide the families, but actually it was the sheriff here trying to keep everybody together, right? And so much so that he cleared the family. So that's a big difference, in my opinion, on how the sheriff is handling it. And it's like, hey, these are victims. You're re-victimizing the family, right? And in Idaho, it was like, we need to divide and conquer, but also it's multiple families, you know, it's multiple families. But how I kind of look at the Nancy Guthrie case is I was looking at all the siblings as individual families. Okay. And if you notice, whenever they did any of the videos, it was all three of them always sat down and did it. Very, very important. And then like we didn't see that in the Idaho case at all. We saw a divide. Okay, so what was going on in the Idaho4 case day 20? Well, here we go. The scene remains under police control. So day one, always a scene, okay, because they were storing evidence overnight, remember? And then they just kept somebody there, right? Well, in the Nancy Guthrie case, same thing. Check, check. Okay. Detectives are aware of a 6th person listed on the lease. We don't have to worry about that. Okay. But they have spoken to this individual and confirmed they moved out prior to the start of school. Okay. So think about all of like the workers, like your pool boys and stuff like that. Like that's kind of what you would be comparing that to. Nancy Guthrie's help. There has been extensive media interest regarding an incident at Taylor Avenue and Banfield. Okay. Finally, let's talk about it. Well, there's a ton of media interest, right? Into what? Well, you had interest into what? Carlos, and now you have interest in the SWAT. So here in the Idaho4 case, they were keeping everything hush-hush on who they were talking to, or at least trying to, when they would like scope out cars. Hey, do you want to bring your car? This way the media doesn't see what we're doing. Can we just search your car? But really, we don't search it. We just take pictures of it. Well, in Nancy Guthrie's case, they're towing, you know, vehicles. And in the Idaho4 case, they left these vehicles out there for until 11/29. So it was just a couple days before this. In the Guthrie case, they're putting the car, towing it away. Then they're going over to, you know, we never had any media over at, you know, the Gonsalveses or Ethan Chapin's or shit. Can you believe this? But the media never found out that Ethan Chapin had an apartment. What a bunch of fucking idiots, right? Okay. Nobody was running a live like thread in the Idaho4 case. Like JLR was down there and doing like little segments here and there. But these people were camped out. Mainstream media was camped out. They should have so much B film. You know probably how much that shit's worth. I guarantee you they sold it to the highest bidder over there at the university. That's never going to come out. Okay. But how in the world did the University of Idaho media people that were there, how was it never reported that Ethan had an apartment? how did you never follow investigators to the point that did they ever even search Ethan's apartment? Okay. So on this lovely day, December 2nd, there is a huge discussion about IGG, just like the Nancy Guthrie case. Basically, the feds want that fucking profile. They want the raw data so they can go rogue, right? And you got authors over here like, hey, can you just ask these dudes, these four brothers, one of them to put their DNA in a database? That's what's going on in the Idaho4 case. And that's where the struggle is, right? With the IGG and who's going to take it on and who's going to do it, because who's going to violate the interim policy? Who's not going to go get search warrants and shit, right? Well, the feds are like, yeah, give it to us. We want it because we're going to go rogue. That's exactly, I'm telling you what we just saw in this case. And it basically got leaked to the media, and that's why I believe the feds got pissed, is because the sheriff didn't turn over that evidence, aka you want to go do whatever the fuck it is that you want to do with IGG. Now, the scene, yep, you got a sheriff out there, and they have a different person that comes. I don't even know if whatever the shift is, but now we get to this big bombshell here, which is they want to tell us that at 3:01, that incident of that drinking and driving, or not drinking and driving, but open container, whatever, minors in possession, it has nothing to do with this case. Absolutely nothing. You guys, these were undercover officers that took that on, that literally lied in a police report, lied about their whereabouts in a police report on November 15th when one of them filled out a police report. And you're going to sit here and try to tell us that that had nothing to do with shit about. Those were undercovers. Okay, undercovers. They want to let us know, hey, here's the incident number, go get it. And it has nothing to do. How the hell do you know that? That has nothing to do with anything. Have you guys found yet an interview that consisted of any one of those kids between the Moscow Police Department and the Idaho State Police? Who interviewed any of those kids about the murders and about truly where they were coming from? Where is it? The feds. The feds have those interviews because they are not in any report today on, I know their names and they're not in any report. Now we get to the biggest blunder in the case. Bill Thompson decides to tell people in interviews that, well, we at the Moscow Police Department, we keep receiving inquiries about comments made by the Latah County prosecutor Bill Thompson, who said the suspect or suspects specifically looked at the victim's residence and that one or more of the occupants were undoubtedly targeted. The Moscow Police Department is the only provider of official information regarding this case. Meanwhile, Bill Thompson and Ashley Jennings are literally writing up search warrants as we speak. And they were doing it the whole time. Bill Thompson. Undoubtedly, these victims, it's like, and Taylor was like, what are you talking about here? Day 20, they went ahead and updated that. Let's see. There it is. Day 20, they wanted us to know the following. Okay. Investigators have looked extensively into that information about Kaylee having a stalker. They have pursued hundreds of pieces of information related to this topic, but have not verified or identified a stalker. Okay. Now, look at all of this. Nobody else has been cleared or not involved, according to them. 2 surviving roommates, so it's all the same people. Okay, nobody was added. And in the Nancy Guthrie case, literally just the family has been cleared. Okay. What else do we have? Okay. They let everybody know that investigators and an original search warrant, detectives relocated the 5 vehicles. But what they also did is they also found Brian Kohlberger's vehicle, and they also found it on November 25th. Remember? They didn't tell us anything about that. Brian Kohlberger is just racking up tickets in a white Honda Elantra, and somehow the university isn't reporting that white Honda Elantra. The university was ready to cover for Brian Kohlberger. Why? Because were they going to pick money? Were they going to pick money over solving this crime? I'm not playing around. I mean, literally a white Honda Elantra kept getting tickets, parking tickets. None of that was ever reported. None of that made it. How does that not make it in the tips? Just fucking, these people are crazy. These people are nuts. Again, detectives are also aware of a Moscow police incident of the report of deceased animals left on a residence porch. It's not a residence porch. It was fraternities and sororities. That's whose porches it was. And that's crazy. Now, a Moscow police incident that occurred on September 12, 2022, regarding an argument between a group of people walking on the University of Idaho bike path and a cyclist who displayed a folding knife is not connected to this incident. You guys, I have went through all these reports. Tell me what report I can find this interview where somebody has turning themselves in and saying, hey, I was the person on the grassy knoll with the folding knife and riding my bike and flashing a knife. Where is that in any of these documents? Okay. Unbelievable. I said, who was this person that came forward and that the prosecutor was like, it was referred. Charges were referred to Moscow city attorney. I said, where is this in discovery? You guys, it's not there. Unless the feds did it. Now, they want to tell us that they want us to believe that these are the only people that are working this case, which is 4 detectives from Moscow, 24 patrol officers, 5 support staff. Then the Federal Bureau of Investigation has 22 investigators in Moscow, 20 assigned agents located throughout the United States, and 2 BAU investigators. Idaho State Police were rolling with 20 investigators in Moscow, a public information officer, ISP Shitty Forensic Services, and the mobile crime scene team. And then 15 uniformed troopers to assist with community patrols. Now, the biggest glaring difference for me is that none of these kids that were murdered were like famous. Okay. Nancy Guthrie, her daughter, super famous, right? Yes. Now, Nancy Guthrie was very vocal about politics on her YouTube or her, what do you call it? Facebook, social media, whatever. And her daughter, same thing. Then her daughter's husband, you know, he's, so we have this whole political thing, right? With the Guthrie case. And then here you have with the Idaho4 case, you have either the drug, people think it's drugs, people think it's sororities and fraternities, okay? Or it's serial killer in the making. Okay. The hardest cases to solve, right, are the ones where there's no connection to the victim. Those are the hardest cases to solve. So basically, in the Idaho4 case, stranger to the 4 victims. In the Nancy Guthrie case, stranger, okay, to Nancy Guthrie. And here we have an international manhunt in the Nancy Guthrie case. We had pretty much we didn't think that it was worldwide that we were searching in the Idaho4 case, but it was when you actually look at it and you see that everyone's located all over with the FBI. But both of these cases, it's expanded across basically the whole United States, right? And now where Nancy's located, right, is into, hey, let's consider Mexico. Okay. Well, why wasn't Canada considered like for anything with with Idaho? That's right there. Not that far. And now we have IGG. That's literally going to solve both of these cases. That's the only hope. But there's going to be a glaring difference here. In the Idaho4 case, they only built one tree. Okay. Right now in the Idaho4 case, they're saying it was just Brian, right? But yet there was these other unknown DNA. Okay. In Nancy's case, it does not take a genius to understand the fact that the DNA that was found in the glove 2 miles away cannot possibly match the DNA that's found inside the house. Okay, because then you wouldn't be submitting it to CODIS because you already submitted to CODIS what was inside, right? But at the very least, it definitely doesn't match, okay? Because you would know that you would just be dealing with one profile. So in Nancy's case, everyone's saying that it was multiple people, like more than one person took Nancy. How are you going to get Nancy? How are you going to carry her out of there? Blah, blah, blah. Well, then I have the number one question that we should all be asking is, how many family trees are they building? Are they just building one or are they building two? In the Idaho4 case, shouldn't they have been building more? Based on the evidence, based on a very important piece of evidence when they say in day 24, which if it gets that far, and day 24, they added this part, which is, and we're not there yet in the Nancy Guthrie case, but we're getting there. And they said that the Idaho State Police Forensic Service Crime Lab scientists have worked on this case for weeks and have provided testing and analysis results to detectives. As they complete additional tests, those results will also be provided. To protect the investigation's integrity, though, specific results will not be released. Guys, that sentence is going to crush them in court. December 6th, they knew that they were rolling with all this other freaking unknown shit. And they didn't care. Isn't that weird? But in the Nancy Guthrie case, they were like, that glove, that one glove versus all the other gloves, that one glove, we need to somehow get that in CODIS, even though it's 2 miles away from the crime scene. How? How are you going to get that in CODIS? How are you going to say that has anything to do with this crime scene? That's how you get stuff in CODIS. It's very strict. So, and if you, let's say that you do or you don't get in CODIS, regardless, IGG, do we believe that the FBI right now or the lab in Florida, are they working and building 2 profiles? How could you not be? How could you not be? If you attempted to get the glove that was 2 miles away from the crime scene into CODIS, you better be fucking IGGing that glove. Otherwise, why the fuck why you care about it? So do we think that they're doing 2 trees right now? They also believe, I mean, they know, I mean, they've seen the videos. Is it more than one person? They missed one of the cameras on the roof. Johnny says, you people hate seeing the new tech catch your idols. The fuck are you talking about? I'm over here saying that they should be using it. Why would you pick and choose what you're using it on, though? You fucking idiot. Take that, Johnny. Use your left hand tonight because your right hand's fucking sore. I'll tell you that. Peace, Johnny. So day 24, that's coming around the corner. That'll be next week. But yeah, day 20 where we're at is, and then what we really knew on December 2nd was absolutely shit. They didn't have anything except they were saying, they didn't even tell us yet, but they're like, hey, let's go looking for these cars and shit. Let's go look for this white Honda Elantra. And then they're over here getting on all fours, barking like dogs. They're not even considering a timeline of how long this happened, how much time this was, what was truly going on, when this really occurred. They're not considering any of the timelines for the victims themselves. And if they are, they're definitely not using it because they did not have access to everybody's cellular phones for any type of like download of it until November 29th. And that would be like right before here. So is this a type of situation where, I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that out the gate in the Idaho4 case, you're like, only one person did this. You had to be considering the fact that this could have been more than one person. Okay. And so then it would really baffle the brain if why you weren't considering making multiple trees for the other profiles. And why is nobody being cleared other than the Guthrie family? Idaho had no problem clearing people. Idaho was like, you cleared. We ain't got shit back, but y'all are cleared. So basically the bottom line is that nobody's ever cleared. We have no idea what they have. We have no idea what they truly are doing. But yet some people continue to either fake leak stuff to the crazy media folks out there that want to push the certain agendas depending on what side you're on. You know, they're always just about that side. What agenda you're pushing. So yeah. So that's where we're at. What do you guys think? Thoughts on the timeline? And she gifted 5 Truth and Transparency memberships. Thank you so much. Kay Schmidt coming with 5 Truth and Transparency memberships. So 10 of you guys turned green. MPD or Oprah to everybody. You get a clearing. Everybody's in the clearing. Johnny. No, I'm never talking to you. Hi. You talking to me? I'm ambidextrous, baby. Love it. According to Moscow Police Department, remember guys, this crime only took about 3 minutes. So so what do you think about the comparison in terms of day 20 where they were with the Moscow case to day 20 here in the Guthrie case? Let's see. Remember, the FBI puts up a reward in this case, but in the Moscow case, they refuse to put up a reward. I wonder how Steve Gonsalves feels about that. You know, in the Guthrie case, $200,000 is up for grabs. I'm just curious the thought process on why in this case, you know, and why not in that case. I think I got it, but it's a campus thing, and we can't be, putting things all around campus. But let's talk about the crime scenes. They both got trampled, right? They both were trampled. The Moscow Police Department trampling all over it, right? And now the rumor has it that the Sheriff's Department totally botched it, right? Well, we'll see. The body-worn camera definitely shows that the Moscow Police Department was having like parties. Basically, they were literally just running all over the place in there. In fact, the lab workers try to say that the reason we didn't process some of the footprints is because we believed it was the police. And I'm like, what police officer was wearing Vans? The idiots. Nobody was. It was whatever to fit any narrative, whatever. How about the level of tips, guys? Let's see. 50,000 tips is where they're saying that they're at in this case, in the Guthrie case. Idaho4, we didn't see that ridiculous surge until after they said, hey, the white Elantra. Okay. Similar to the Guthrie case, a shit ton of the tips came in after the release of what? The video. We had a sketch artist in the Guthrie case off of eyebrows. Okay. But we didn't have a sketch artist sit down with Dylan though, off of those eyebrows. So both cases feature a mask. Both cases feature Walmart. Anything else I could think of to enlighten us? Let's see. Well, that'll close us out then. Both cases feature a Range Rover. Throw that in there for you. Good addition. Good addition. We got DoorDash, maybe. We got some deliveries going on. Oh yeah, in both cases, we do not have the suspect vehicle leaving the area. Like it's not getting out of Dodge. It's more just like right by the house. So. Huh? Oh yeah, and then obviously both cases have a Showalter. Right? Both cases have a Showalter. Very, very interesting similarity. Just like, wow. Anyways, I just wanted to share that with you guys. So you can kind of see where the last major media story that was like a manhunt, where they were day 20 in 2022. Oh yeah, we had flock cameras in this case. They didn't have flock cameras in Moscow or in Pullman at the time in 2022. So they didn't have that option. And yeah. All right. Well, let me know what you guys think in the comment section of the video, and we will be back with more. Stay tuned. Peace out. Thank you, moderators. Thank you, subscribers, members, lurkers. You are most appreciated.